Afternoon. We are on live on this Monday afternoon for a Monday musing. Erin and I have not done a Monday musing for a little while. They're kind of becoming once a month, I think, because that's a bit easier. And I'm just going to add her in. So just give me one sec. Okay. Hang on. Let's see. Here we go. I am not feeling all the best today, so we shall see how we go. I can talk about business, sacred business, with my eyes closed. So having a bit of a snuffly nose and a headache is not going to be too bad. But I'm here with my cup of tea and in my very messy Lego-filled lounge room with my fireplace going to keep me all warm. I pretend like my house is all clean. Look at this background, but actually it is a disaster. Anyway, hello.
Hi. How are you?
I'm okay today. I'm not bad. I am hoping that I am not coming down with anything too serious, but I'm okay. Good to chat. How are you?
I'm good. I feel like a bit similar this time of year. There's so much going around. My kids have all been unwell and I've touched wood, not caught anything yet, but you know when you can just feel like something just is waiting to like take you down.
Yeah.
So lots of rest, lots of warm, nourishing foods, and we keep hoping for the best.
I hear you. And it's actually perfect because we can talk about that in terms of running your own business and working with one's own cycles and the seasons and the cycles, and you posted this recently about winter and how we tend to want to slow down. Like that's our innate way of being as humans and beings. We want to slow down in winter and take rest. And I definitely find when I'm extra busy, my body takes me down because it's actually like, slow the fuck down and stop. And so, yeah, I felt it too. My husband was really unwell for a couple of weeks and he was away and I was doing all this extra stuff. And now that he's better, I'm like, oh, here we go. This is my message to slow down. And in winter, like it is that, isn't it? It's like fitness is that beautiful opportunity and reminder.
Yeah, for sure.
But when we own our own businesses, it is tricky. So that's what we want to talk about today. And it's a funny topic, really, because there's so many like business gurus out there who preach certain ideas. And so when I've shown up and talked about business, sometimes I've felt a bit like imposter syndrome and like, oh, I don't know about this, but actually really important to talk about it as someone who actually works in the field, and we do that work in the field and people really want to know how that works in the back end. And I think it's important to be transparent about all of that. So I think maybe I just want to start talking about like how we got into this work and why I started to feel passionate about including discussions around business in this realm of space holding. Maybe I should first kind of define space holding. So I often talk about space holders as like, you know what I mean, but then I had a reminder last night of someone who I absolutely feel is a space holder. It was like, I don't know if it's for me because I'm not a space holder. And I was like, what? So I suppose my perspective is very much from my position as a space holder. So I think, and I've spoken to a few other space holders over the years who are like, there's nothing out there from somebody, I mean, maybe there is now, but in the past, I don't think there was, someone actually doing the work and actually talking about, you know, what it means to fill up circles, what it means to fill up containers, what it means to actually bring in an income and a profit, not just a loss and like debt, in, say, a small business in a sustainable way. And so that's really where I'm coming from to offer that perspective. And so when I talk about space holders, I suppose it is from my perspective, but it also broadens out to others who do similar work. So, and I'll be curious to hear like your definition too, but I used to work mostly with birth workers, doulas predominantly, actually, because that was where I came from. So it was mostly birth workers. And what I was finding is that birth workers were coming into it often after they'd had their own babies. And once they had done their training, they were like, oh, actually being on call is just completely impossible and completely against all of my values and against what I believe in for my life and why I got into this work, which is to hold space for women in the postpartum and the antenatal and the birth and in these sacred realms. And what we know now is that postpartum is not 6 weeks. It's like barely even 6 years. It's probably like, it's forever. Postpartum is forever. And so these doulas that were getting into birth work as mums were burning the hell out and going, actually, no one told me how difficult this would be. They told me about the sacredness of birth and how to hold space for birth, but they didn't tell me how to juggle being on call and how to actually make money so that I'm, you know, able to put food on the table and so that I can pay for petrol. And I remember saying things like, if you're paying to be at a birth, it's completely unethical. Like, you can't be out of pocket to be holding space for these vulnerable situations where you are entering this space completely depleted and not like, you need a doula, for goodness sakes. You can't be a doula if you need a doula yourself. And so that's the position that I came from in terms of where I entered the realm of talking about business. And I ran a mentorship for doulas. But what I found was that after doing their training and after attending quite a few births and realizing that being on call is really freaking hard, and being on the fringes of birth in this climate is actually really challenging, a lot of, well, actually, I think every single one of the doulas that I worked with went into other fields. And so my work broadened to be space holders. And what I found to be true was circles and ceremonies and that sort of work was able to hold these vulnerable spaces in a way that perhaps created deeper, broader, wider transformations for these clients than the birth itself. Because once you're at the birth, like, it's too late. Like, you can't change anything when you're at the birth. So it was about, well, how do we bring women together? How do we create connection? So it became all about connection. How do we create more connection and community where women are held to be able to be informed about their choices about birth, so they actually don't need you at the birth? Like, then you don't need to be on call, and you can actually make more consistent income, and actually then take on less births, but still serve in a way that's accessible to more people. So that's a bit of my background in terms of why I started talking about business, because I could see these space holders and birth workers burning the hell out and not utilizing other areas of connection and service in a way that would benefit them in so many ways and benefit the community in more ways. Like, circles are rippling out in all the, you know, for every 10, all the 10 women that attended the liminal retreat, if each of them hold one circle with 10 women, there's 100 women that are served, you know. And so it's always been about connection. It's always been about service. It's never been about how do we scale, how do we profit. You can find that anywhere. All of that can be relevant somewhat, but it's like missing this whole big step from my perspective. So that's why I want to talk about space holders in terms of anyone that serves sacred and liminal spaces. So that can be in one-on-ones, that can be in workshops, that can be online, that can be in groups, that can be circles, that can be ceremonies. It can be, you know, doulas and birth workers and ceremony and circle facilitators and kinesiologists. Don't mind my dog. I wondered if she would bark. And yoga instructors and Pilates instructors and massage therapists and naturopaths and nutritionists and dietitians, and like, the list goes on, because all of this is, and birth photographers, and the list goes on, because all of this is relevant to the ways that we need to go inward in order to serve from a full cup and in order to expand our capacity to hold and receive, which is where the money comes in. So people come to me and they're like, how do I make more money? How do I get more clients? And I'm like, we got to go backwards. And yeah, so you and I got into this work pretty organically because we became mums. And we were like, there's a gap in the community to support birth workers. And so we ran a doula retreat, and it kind of went from there. And then we kind of innately have served birth workers, but now we've really branched out in other ways. And now I work mostly with space holders from a whole range of areas, but specifically like circles and ceremonies, and still birth workers, birth professionals. But it was never for us either about like, how can we make more money? It was like, how can we stay home with our kids and be flexible and make some money so that we're not out of pocket? How do we do this thing? Right?
Totally. Totally. So it was about, like, it started, well, for me, it was multifaceted because my work fuels me, and without it, I would be nowhere near as fulfilled and content. To create a business that, like, my number one priority was to be able to be at home with my children as much as I wanted to be able to do things like school drop-offs, school pickups, go to assemblies. I mean, my youngest still hasn't even started school, so to be able to be at home with her as much as possible. And then, yeah, it was just really organic, and the needs and wants of my business, which essentially is me, has really shifted and changed so much since, I was thinking earlier, it was 2016 that I really, so my daughter was born in 2013, and then I had a couple of like side hustles while I studied. So I did my doula training, I did my placenta encapsulation training, and then I was little bits where I could in between. I had an admin job and a swimming instructor and supervisor position. And then I just kind of got to the point where I could drop those because my energy was just way too fractured, and just focus solely on my business. And then, yeah, like I said before, the needs and the wants of my business have really shifted and changed over the past 6 years. As my children get older, as I get more time, you know, since becoming a single mama 3 years ago, my need to make more money has increased. So yeah, and then it's just kind of organically flowed, and like new offerings have, or, you know, like dropped into my field. I've been like, oh, okay, let's pursue this one, let's pursue that one. And it's a lot running your own business. It's you know, it's all on you. And I think as well, success looks really different for different people. And so, you know, there's so much pressure out there, like, oh, I need the multi-6-figure business, and it's like, that's not my main priority. You know, like, it'd be great, but that's not my main goal. And so, and I think it's really easy to get so like wrapped up into that vortex of like, I'm not making enough money, and I'm a failure, and I'm this and I'm that. But like, you know, we were talking a few months ago, and we, like, our business has never run at a loss. We've always made like quite a significant profit. It's enabled us to be the parents that we've wanted to be. We like, almost all of our offerings have been well received. I think that, you know, like, that's a stronger thing as well. Whereas, and you know, that's what some people need. That's not the way I work. So it's like, I've just had to like expand in increments as my life has enabled me to, and do all the shit ton shadow work and, you know, money block work, which is still like the biggest ongoing process. And I think for us as well, like our I'm going to say it, like, I know for myself, my core value in business is serving from a space of embodied integrity, and not going to like fake it until I make it, or put out things that aren't in alignment or that feel a bit off, because like I can just smell that shit from a mile off. And especially in a space holding field, there's, you know, there are so many people that are unfortunately perpetuating harm because they're not serving from a place of embodied integrity. So for me, just like kind of going slowly and then slowly expanding into it has really been the path that I've needed to take. And within that does come all of those like, you know, oh, I'm not going hard enough, I'm not going fast enough, I'm not as successful as those people are. And then you have people, and I know so many mothers who have created their own businesses who get that whole like, oh, how's your little side hustle going? And oh, I love all the little projects you've got on the go. And it's just like, a fuck off. Like, it's not a little side hustle. Like, it's my work, and it enables me to be the parent that I've always wanted to be, and it puts food on the table and it pays the bills.
And we love it too. Like, I think this is the other thing. Even when we want, like, okay, so let's normalize running your own business not being the easiest choice. Like, there's actually easier ways to make money. If you want to make money, you don't want to, like, this wouldn't be your first choice. Like, if that's your main intention, this is not it. Like, because it requires so much inner work and such a journey. And it also can take some time as you peel away the layers, particularly if you're going from maiden to mother. That transition is huge. And so as you're unraveling yourself, you're unraveling what's at the heart of what is like really true for you. What is your soul really calling? So you and I had to do a lot of experimenting. I mean, I was writing it all down the other day, all the things I've done, you know, like, so I did all the formal, like, university training, and my career was like a really big deal. And it was a huge part of my identity. And then I had this very spirited, pretty high needs child, and my husband got really sick and couldn't work for 2 years. We lived in a van and were basically homeless. And then I got pregnant. Like, we had nothing. So I went from like this like career woman to like, this is the bottom of the fucking barrel. What the hell am I going to do? And so my business actually, like you were saying, fueled me and became the place where I could, I don't want to say escape, but it was an escape in a way that it refueled me so that I could cope with everything. And I had to be really, this is where I learned so much about nervous system and capacity, because I had to be so discerning that if I was going to be holding space, I couldn't be doing that from a disembodied, disassociated, traumatized place. So I stopped attending births. And then I was like, okay, so now what? If I'm not the social, I tried to go back to work. I tried to go back to my social work job. It lasted like 2 weeks. I was like, I was so depleted. I was suffering postpartum depression. I was like a mess, and I just couldn't do it. So every time we even think about going back to other work, the universe is like, nope. And so I've kind of accepted that. And so it did take a while for us to experiment around what was actually true for us. And so there was a lot. We've done placenta encapsulation. You're still doing that. I'm not doing that anymore. We did doula training. Like, and it's all led to this place of where we are now. And part of that is why
I just say as well, it, like, all of the training that we've done has really showed us where the gaps are and what's missing, and how we don't want to practice.
It's actually showed us more that, especially the business stuff. And I think, but it was so useful. And something saying about, you know, the 6-figure hustle facade that sells to pain. And I think this is the point, that selling to pain is so unethical. And we are seeing a bit of a shift in that way. But that is traditional marketing, is like sell to people's pain points, sell to their vulnerabilities. And I'm like, fuck that, it's gross. And what I realized, what we both kind of realized in some particular trainings that we did was like, you know, we kind of got sucked into this idea of let's build an empire and like, we're going to change the world. And like, oh my God, you know, let's fucking hustle and make, you know, show women what they can do and how we can do it. And we were like, actually, this is the antithesis of who I am and what I want to be. And actually, if I really think about it and I go into the heart of what I really value, exactly what you said, embodied integrity and my family and connection. It was like, I just serve connection. Like, honestly, what I needed so much as an isolated new mum and as a businesswoman in this kind of, you know, woo woo, as they say, kumbaya, you know, we got teased so much about like, it's not real business. It's just like a little hobby, is we need community. We need community for ourselves as women, as mothers, and we need community with other like-minded space holders who get it. Because we can't just go home and talk to our partners about the things that we're facing. I mean, we can, but it's not the same. And if you work in an office, like that's one of the things I really missed. I really missed the people that I was surrounded by. And so we need to find that again. And that's what we're all about, really, is community. So it's so important that we're talking about business from a completely different perspective, for space holders, from space holders. And what I've noticed is a lot of the people talking to this topic have never been a space holder. They're like marketing experts, or they're, you know, men, not mothers, not, you know, like, or the priority is to exchange one's corporate income for another corporate income. And perhaps like don't have kids, and it's really different and just share really different values. So redefining success is so important, and there is no one definition of success. But if you look on social media, it really is this idea of like, yeah, make six figures or you're not succeeding. And I laugh every time because I think people are starting to see through it, I hope. But what people, and this is why we felt passionate to speak up, and why I really want to run, why I do mentor space holders, is because a lot of what you see is not in integrity, and it's literally lies. It's literally bullshit. They're faking it till they make it. They haven't succeeded until they've taught business, and then they made six figures off the back of speaking to people's pain points in business, you know, like, so it's, I mean, not everyone, obviously, like, it's generalization. But the other thing is that if we define success only by, you know, six-figure income or seven-figure income, what we miss is actually, you know, how much did they invest? How much debt do they actually have? How much profit did they actually make? How much actually went into their pocket? Who else is supporting them? You know, what do they have shared values? And when you actually look, when what I find interesting is some of these people that do spout that eventually come around and they're like, I was lying, I was a fraud, everything was a mess, you know, and you're like, no shit, like, why couldn't you just be honest in the first place? And so let's look at success from our own embodied version based on our values. Not everybody needs an income. Some people have a lot of support. Some people have nest eggs. Some people don't need that. And so for them, it's really about, I need to cover my costs, or I need to, you know, be able to put petrol in my car and make a profit, or I want to give back in some way. And other people really do need to make a decent profit. But then let's look at that as opposed to like these measures of like six figures, because I know a lot of big businesses making six figures where they're not making profit. Especially, I think it's like for the first 5 years, it's very rare for small businesses to turn over a profit. And it's quite common for people to invest huge amounts in the early stages. And so one of the reasons we want to talk on this is because we never did that. We didn't have money to invest. I had nothing. I barely had a house. Like, my husband couldn't work. We suddenly had like nothing. We had nothing to invest. We invested small amounts as we could, but there was no investing in like big business coaches at the beginning. There was no like Facebook ads or, you know, any of this stuff. We had to build it small and slowly. But I can say that from the very first year of both of our businesses, we've made a profit, no matter how small. And for me, I'm like, fuck yes. And every year that my kids have gotten bigger, that's been able to expand because I've been able to, you know, focus more on my nervous system and focus more on my values and get clearer. And one of our teachers, you talked about going slowly. Our teachers, Perry Chase, says you can only go as slow as your slowest parts. And for mums, you can only
your slowest parts.
Go as fast as your slowest parts. Yes, thank you. My quoting is always off. And for mums, that's usually kids, you know, and that's not to be victimized by motherhood or like, you know, and we've gone there where we're like, oh my God, I could make so much more money if I had more time. But also I want to be at home with my kids while they're small.
Yeah. And the flip side of that coin is like, that's one of our values. That's not everybody's value. Like another mother's value, they might value being of service and going to work for others higher than not motherhood, but higher than being at home with their kids. And that's
100%
like, perfectly valid and fine. So then success is going to be framed differently for them. So, you know, it's like, and then we've all got different.
As my kids get older, that's also where I'm moving to as well. So I'm like, oh, business actually looks different now. So there's no one way. We have to, and we were laughing about this on the phone just before where we were like, I was like, this is what I would do. And you were like, that sounds horrendous to me. And so we were saying that, you know, if we had done a sort of traditional business strategic course, we would have been so paralyzed and stagnated because we do things differently and we value things differently. So when we talk about sacred business in terms of like this work that we're doing isn't mainstream, it is on the fringes, it is a bit looked down upon, it is can be really isolating and is usually from people who want to work outside of the system or want to work outside of the mainstream. And so we do things a bit differently to what is sort of traditional business. And so when I talk about sacred business, it's really not, it's not like formal business training, and it has to be in a way that is malleable and transferable to each individual and their unique service, their unique energy, their unique values, and their different phases of life. Like we have to have some kind of framework that we can evolve into because we are cyclic, evolving beings.
Yeah, bang on. And I think like we have to be careful and discerning about who we learn money and business from, because like you said, like not everybody is going to be the right fit, and inadvertently being humans, we're going to bring our lived experience and our perceptions of what success looks like, what we value the highest to the table. And so, you know, like I have like invested in a couple of business courses, and I've just kind of been sitting there and I'm like, this just is not a fit for me. And, you know, like our values here just completely don't align. And this protocol or this map or this
like the formula
methodology or formula is like, it's not for me. And so what I love about what you teach is that you encourage your students to come up with their own, like, so you've got steps that they can follow where they literally come up with their own map.
Yeah,
it's great.
And come back to it, because, and I guess this is the point, like we have been space holders, and well, I've been space holding even as a social worker for, I don't even know how long now, 15, 20 years. And I mean, I've done it and I'm living it, and every single day living and breathing it. So I want to create a space where space holders can come and kind of do a big out breath and just be like, okay, I don't need to push. I don't need to extract, because that's the thing. A lot of the business stuff is so extractive, it's so linear. Look, some of it is great, and sometimes intentional extraction can be useful, but it has to come with so many other factors around understanding your own energy, your own value, your own cyclic nature, which is why we have returning, where people can go inward. And then I teach sacred business, where you can apply those parts to the business side as well. And there's just so many different parts to it that really needs to be embodied as your own unique, growing, evolving thing. I mean, I do tend to teach business like gardening, like akin to gardening, because that's really what it is. And as women, you know, predominantly who I work with, that's how we work, this cyclic nature. So the ways that we connect with our inner and outer cycles is the way that we need to connect with our business as well. And it's interesting, a lot of the people that I've worked with, they come to me, they're like, I just want to make more money and I just want more clients. And I'm like, cool. And then we work together, and what actually happens is they slow the fuck down and they realize that they've been extracting so hard, they don't even know what they want anymore. I'm like, so how do you want to feel? And like, what do you desire in this work? And they're like, oh, I don't know. Like, I just need to be amplified and I just need to be seen. And I'm like, cool. But like, do you enjoy that? And that's the thing. It can't be extractive. It's got to be nourishing and regenerative. And, you know, it's not always going to feel good. A lot of the time it's going to be really uncomfortable, wildly uncomfortable. And especially as sacred workers, this is the other point about making the difference between regular business and sacred business, is that we hold within ourselves, within our unconscious mind, from ancestral and unconscious places, intense witch wounding and money wounding, and this idea that's programmed that our worth is not, our service is not worth financial exchange, and that if we put a price on it, paralyzes people, and that we should be giving this work for free. And, you know, it's really challenging to unwind all of that. Like, if you're holding all of those things and you're in a collapse or you're in massive constriction, there's no way that you can open to receiving this exchange and understanding this idea that money is actually neutral. Like, it has no charge itself. It just goes wherever the driver takes it. And so the more people that are taking it into these sacred spheres, which we're really seeing this at the moment, the more external value is placed on this work, the more that we start to become respected. Like, back in the day, people used to be like, what's a doula? Is that like a jeweler, or like fencing? And it was frustrating. And now everyone knows what a doula is. And similarly with our circles, people used to kind of tease us, like, circles, you know, so, do you sit around singing Kumbaya and dancing naked or whatever? And I'm like, well, if we did, that would be fine and cool, but like, that's not it. And we would charge like $25, and people would be like, oh my God, as if you're charging that much. You can't put petrol in your car and food on your table for $25 for a circle. Like, you're paying to be there, essentially. So we have to talk about these things, and we have to change, because I mean, interest rates and petrol prices are not going down. So at the end of the day, what we're going to see is continued more and more space holders burning out and leaving the work. And one of the reasons that I started teaching circles and mentoring space holders was I just got so frustrated that I had no one I could trust to refer to. Like, it got to the point where I can't take on everyone. My capacity is very limited because I have 2 small kids. And my books are generally full, and I can't refer. And I'm like, I need people to refer to. And if you're all blocked up because you don't want to be seen, you don't want to make money, there's all these people missing out on your medicine and your soul work. So let's just talk about money. Let's talk about business from a completely different perspective. Let's make it work for you. And then there'll be enough people to go around. And look how many people are having doulas and blessings and closings and ceremonies and, you know, healing so many things that's rippling out for generations before us and generations to come.
Yeah.
So
totally. And
yes.
I think, like, it's very, very different running your own business if you hold space, as opposed to running your own business if you are a tradie, or if you you know, are a house removalist, or if you are a delivery person, because you can just go to work and do your thing without your energy really affecting anybody else. But when you do hold space, you have a duty of care to the people whose space you are holding, to the people who are compensating you financially to do that, from a place of grounded, embodied integrity. And so we have different needs when we run a business as a space holder, and those really need to be taken into account when you're doing business related stuff, when you're planning, when you're budgeting, when, like, I think, yeah, it's a specific niche that requires a really different kind of set of things to follow. And that's what you cover, which I love, which is what all of those kind of recipe formula things out there really miss.
All the strategies, because the thing is, the strategies come in from a place of like, okay, how can we scale? How can we niche you down so that people can see you? And like, I guess I'm coming from a place of I've done all these things, so I really want to help people avoid, or I guess like fast track in a slow embodied way, so that they miss all that stuff that just ends up making you paralyzed and confused. Because I did all of it, and it's so true that it's a lot of people want to avoid the business side. But the thing is, it comes part and parcel, because we have to actually be supported and held ourselves, not just by community and accountability, all the things that make up embodied integrity. But we need to be able to go for a massage if we've been at a birth for 30 hours and have been all like pretzeled up. We need to be able to go and get therapy or kinesiology or something if we've been activated at a birth. We need, like, and this is where I came from as a social worker. I had to do 1,000 hours of placement. I had to do part of that. I had to do fortnightly supervision. Supervision just was normal. And then I went out into doula work, and I was like, wait, you're not required to have supervision? I'm like, this is blowing my mind. How is this ethical? And what I noticed is so many of them carrying, and midwives too, when I studied midwifery, like that was horrendous. And I had a long chat with someone at a birth, a midwife at a birth, and she was like, I'm carrying so much trauma. Like, I don't know where to put it. There's nothing, there's nowhere for me to go. And it's about taking personal responsibility. So as a space holder, there's this like, yes, you need to do your taxes, and yes, you need to do all those responsible things, and yes, you need to work on your money stuff, which in and of itself is quite a big thing for a lot of sacred workers. But you also need to work on your own shit, because if you walk into a sacred space and you're carrying all that, and you're like all out of range, and your nervous system is activated, like, people will feel that. You will impact those sacred spaces. So it's so important that we have the capacity and the spaciousness within our work and our service, not just to like create consistent packages and, you know, consistent income, but for our own well-being and our own ability to continue holding from this embodied place. And that's where the business stuff is not really relevant, because you can go straight to strategy, you can go straight to like how to make money and how to scale and how to niche. Often it becomes boring as batshit, and it kind of misses your essence and like who you really are. And then it's like, you know, how do people choose you? How do people know that you're for them if you're not speaking on what is really on your heart? But also you'll become paralyzed. The energy, I guess that's the thing, the energy and alignment within this work is the most important thing. You can have all the strategy, all the business tools, all the niching, but if the energy is not in alignment and there's no spaciousness, and you're not hitting the truth of what is really, really there for you, which often people are attached, they're attached to an identity of like who I am and like this is how I serve, and they miss what's truly there for them. And it just, it can't stay. It dies. And if there's resistance letting it go, it dies slowly and painfully.
Yeah. And it's like it's and so this is where we bring it back to returning as well, because it's about like, can your people feel you? And like, if you can't feel yourself, and if you're just literally like robotically following a methodology or whatever, then your people can't feel you, and the people that you're going to attract are going to be wanting surface level stuff. And look, like, if you only want to serve in authentic surface level stuff, like, that's fine. There's a place for all of it. But if you want to make like sustained, responsible, like long lasting, deep change for people as a space holder, which I think, you know, the majority of space holders that I know, that's what they want. They don't want to be like serving manufactured bullshit. They want to be serving authentic, you know, like deeply held space, so that people can unravel and have those processes which essentially take them further along their soul's journey and their life's path. If your people can't feel you, you're not going to be attracting your people. And so that's why like, that's it's essential that you really come back, and that's why it all like super starts within, because you got to know you before you can take you, but before you can show the world you.
That's exactly right. And I've worked with a lot of space holders over the years who, well, a lot are really paralyzed from being seen, so they don't show up for a start. And my response to that is like, there's no strategy around showing up other than allowing people to see you. They're not going to want you in their sacred, vulnerable spaces where you're going to see them at their most vulnerable if they don't trust you and like know you well enough. So we need to stop thinking about it as like, oh, you know, social media is you know, whatever label people want to give it and why it's all bad and everything. We just have to see it as like, how am I creating connection? How am I serving? How am I serving my community? And I don't have to be everything to everyone. There is someone for everyone. And that's where I talk so much about the witch wounds and competition. Like, there is no such thing as competition. Everyone does things differently, and there could be, you know, 10 doulas in the same area, or you know, 10 circle facilitators in the same area, and they all do things so differently, and people will feel that when you show up and you are yourself. And what we need to be doing is connecting with each other to be held ourselves, not like this hyper independent, like glorifying hyper independence and, you know, lone wolfing it, because we cannot hold space from that empty place.
Yeah.
And the other thing that when I know that when people practice from a scarce place of like, I just need to take anyone that will pay me, you attract people that are not your people. And what it does is it feeds and fuels your, like, it's your scarcity and your worthiness and your not enoughness and your, you know, because all it does, it goes, that was a horrible experience, I don't want to do that anymore. But actually it's got nothing to do with the fact that you're not enough, or you're not good enough, or that you're worthy of great, magical, amazing dream clients. It's that your messaging wasn't clear enough. And right. That's what we need to be talking more about, is how can I create authentic messaging, you know, this idea of like messaging, positioning and branding and all these like jargon words, but how can we reframe them in a way that actually just looks like connection? Because connection is a form of currency, like it is.
And it's energetic, right? Like it's all energy. Like everything is just energy. So if you're saying yes because you're like, to people who aren't your ideal client because you're desperate, then that's just putting like that energy out, which is only going to attract that energy back, which perpetuates harm, which speaks to the universe, you know, like, I'm not worthy of my ideal client. Or you know, your ideal client is just simply not going to be attracted to that. So it's never going to come to you. Whereas if you say, you know, I don't think we're the right fit after an initial meet or whatever with people who are not your people, then that opens up space in the universe, within your system, for that ideal person to come in.
Right. And when you have a community, rather than competing with other people in your field, you can say, actually, I don't think we're the right fit, but I have these amazing other people that would be perfect for you, or I don't have space in my calendar, but I have these amazing people, and we create this beautiful interconnected community where it's thriving and it's regenerative, and it's just continues to move and grow, and it's beautiful and blooming. That's what we want. That's expansive. That's the expansive energy. Extraction, which is what a lot of business is, and scarcity, like all this, pain point marketing, and like, I have to do it this way and I have to push through. And, you know, what if we just didn't do business like that? And you and I do not. And our businesses have been much more thriving since we stopped doing that and creating communities literally for connection. I can live and breathe that every single day.
Yes, we're here for the thriving, vibrant ecosystem.
Right. And that's exactly what it is. So sacred business is essentially an embodied approach to building a sustainable ecosystem where it's an exchange, and where you're not practicing from a really empty, depleted place, and it fulfills you as much as you fulfill the community. What I do find as well is there's a lot of space holders that they kind of go the other way, and they just like train and do more trainings because they just continually never think that they're enough. And it's this constant like perpetual cycle of like disassociation by doing more trainings. And just like, so there's like the bell curve where it's like, yes, some training and supporting your learning is really important, maintaining accountability, maintaining like professional standards, all those things, yes. And if you just keep doing that, you're actually sabotaging yourself from just being of service to your community. And I have people, and they're like, you know, I've invested so much and I'm just not returning on that. It's like, yes, because you need to actually do the work, be of service, and then when you make the money, then you reinvest. And it's this continued beautiful infinity symbol of back and forth for infinitum in that ecosystem. So we need to look at, I guess, and normalize more mentoring, more community, more accountability for space holders, as opposed to like, I'm not enough and I need just more and more training. Because you can be the most trained in your area, but if no one can see you, what difference does it make? Yeah. And if you're money and you have to like go get another job when you've invested like $20,000-$30,000 into education because you're not showing up, then the issue actually isn't money or clients. It's actually, there's a block, there's paralysis, there's constriction, there's extraction, there's disassociation, there's nervous system stuff that we need to look at. And that comes from prioritizing, you know, mentors that can support that, who understand sacred business and space holding business, and from a nervous system perspective.
Yeah, totally. And like I think like it just all comes back to community as well, right? Like you were talking about the people who've done the million courses and the million certificates and attended all the things, and you know, they can actually just and who are like hyper independent lone wolf as a trauma response, like usually to like ingrained sisterhood wounds or whatever that they just can't even look at. But serving from that space as well is dangerous, actually, because you have no one to debrief with, you have no one to refer to. It's all ego, it's all in your head, none of it is in your body. And we've seen that as well, and that actually is often the most dangerous archetype that I've seen. So and like, community truly is just everything.
It ruins it for everybody as well.
Yeah.
Because they get in trouble, and you're like, if we were actually like united and working together, instead of you wanting to cut everyone else down because you think we're all your competition, even though, yeah, we can be different, but we can like still work together. Because I still get people asking me for doulas or, you know, space holders just like you. Everything would work so much better. So we need to work on those sisterhood wounds, the money stuff, the witch wounds, the big fears, all of this, you know, the archetype of the martyred and poor, you know, all of those things, this idea that my work is not real because it's not valued in patriarchal society. when actually, I mean, look at the booming of astrology and menstrual cycle awareness and all the things that were shunned. They're all coming up because people are seeing the benefit in them. And just because it feels like it's everywhere, your unique medicine is still needed. Like, we can't all serve everyone. Like, we need more and more people. There's no such thing as a saturated market, but what we need is to create, to be talking more about it from this embodied, regenerative, holistic, grounded approach, where it's not just all like linear business, and we're talking about this cyclic. So I teach it more from a cyclic perspective and how we move through each phase. And I talk about launching. Like, launching is a really big thing for a lot of people. They get really freaked out about the idea of launching. And I know for me, launching has been one of those like tricky things from an unconscious wounding place. But launching is a birth. Like, it is a form of birthing into the world. And so birth is a rite of passage. So we need to be looking at launching not as like, get your calendar out and let's strategize all of these things. We need to look at it as these 3 phases of this rite of passage that creates transformation. And every time you birth something into the world, you are somebody different after that process. And, you know, and consistency as well. I get a lot of space holders wanting to know, how can I fill up my circles? How can I not be depleted and not exchange for my time and my energy? And how can I create consistency in my income? Because when my kids are sick or I'm sick and I can't work and I lose all this income, it's really detrimental. And it's like, well, let's create a plan based on this to create more consistency. And I know you and I have definitely kind of started to master that process in the last couple of years, where we have filled out all of our containers. We have had to, you know, cull things off. As they say, like in the writing world, kill your darlings. We had to kill a couple of darlings in order to create more spaciousness and more consistency, because that was the place that we needed to serve from in order to support our families and our values and all of those things. So there are ways, but it's not going to happen if you're just going round and round the mouse wheel and you're just coming from this place of extraction and paralysis and nervous system dysregulation and hyper independence. I've had to ask for a lot of help in the last couple of years in order to expand. I've had to work through my own issues with, how do I ask for help? It's really hard, and I have done that, and I've invested massively into support and help in the back end of my business, and every time it's paid off. So there are ways to create regenerative, you know, what did you say, vibrant ecosystem businesses that are so fulfilling and sometimes wildly uncomfortable, but with tools to work through that so that you can continue to be of service, and to really know and normalize that the work that you're doing requires a different type of business than your kind of regular business, and that there is no measure of success that has a financial label. Like, there's no financial, you know, peak where you're like, I made it, I'm successful. Because actually, I fucking love celebrating, and we celebrate a lot. And a lot of people in my embodied space holder, they were shocked by the fact that they don't celebrate their wins. Celebrate, enjoy, have fun. Like, where do you get your dopamine hits from? Like, make it fun, make it enjoyable. People will feel that. Celebrate the wins. Like, 6 figures is not all it's cracked up to be if it's coming from a place of extraction, scarcity, burnout, debt, you know, no profit, like all of those things. So you cannot compare your business with anybody else's business. Like, even you and I, we laugh at the ways that we do things differently. Like, everyone has a different way, and that's what I teach in Sacred Business.
Yeah.
Yes. So we're almost going to get cut off. Do you have anything else to add on that?
No, I think that's good.
Does anyone have any questions? Who is on? I am running the Sacred Business Activation Workshop online. It has been run in person before. If you've gone in person, it's still going to be so different and vibrant and great and dynamic and different in the online version. So I'm running that on the 10:30 a.m. both days, Adelaide time on the 8th and 9th of June. The early bird is out. I've really tried to make it super affordable and accessible. The early bird is $222 and it's available now. So I really hope some people jump in. If you have questions, because you can't make it live, there is going to be a replay. So you can send me through anything you specifically want to know, because I'm going to do lots of Q&As. And if I don't cover it in the material, then I'll make sure that I cover your questions. I really hope to see you there. And returning is also the foundational place. So if you have a business, I really encourage you to look at returning, which is all of the foundations and roots around cyclic living and getting to know your inner system. And we have our monthly call on Friday night. It is, how much is it a month?
It's
I forget.
$33. It's so affordable. It's so insane. For how much content is in the learning platform, and for the group, which you know, we bring all of like the digestions and the conversations into, and for the monthly live calls, like it's really a no-brainer. Like if you can't prioritize $33 a month to basically like come home to yourself and learn the foundations of yourself, then how can you share you out there in the world, which is what you need to do when you run your own business.
Yeah. Everyone has to do returning when they do my bigger containers, because it is so vitally important. And when you do Sacred Business, it's 2 days of 3-hour calls live. You'll get the replay. You also get this massive workbook that is over 100 pages, full of so much information, and 30-day access to the portal with some other resources as well. So there's heaps in there. There's heaps in returning. We really do prioritize being of service over finances, but we are so successful in our like views of success, and I really want that for everybody else. And I want you all to fill up your circles, fill up your containers, feel like you're making a beautiful profit and a contribution to the world. So come and join me on the 8th and 9th, and hit me up in my DMs if you have any other questions.
Yeah. So like you're worthy of being held and being supported, and you need to be in embodied integrity, and you need to be serving from a space where you are well resourced, or else you're potentially perpetuating harm, which is what too many space holders do. And like, you're worthy of being held. I think that's the biggest thing, is like so many people are so constricted and they just can't receive. So that one of the biggest pieces here is like opening to receive yourself, so that then you have a bigger capacity to be able to serve your people and be of service in the world, which essentially is what we're all here to do. And
that's what we all.
Yes. And be boss parents at the same time, because for most of us, that is our number one core value and priority, is being able to be first and foremost the parent that we want to be. And then we need our business to support us in that. And, you know, like for us, that's what success looks like. For other people, that might look differently, and that's fine. But yeah, this is kind of the space we come from. Yeah.
And being able to be a good parent. Well, I'm a better mom because I do this work, and I do this work because I'm a parent, like, and they just really support each other. And your worth is not determined by how much money your business is making, or how many clients you have, or how many followers you have on Instagram, or how much engagement you have on Instagram. And that's something that we'll talk about as well in Sacred Business. Actually, some of the smallest followings make the most profit. And it's just, people don't talk about what goes on behind the scenes. So like, your worth is 100% not connected to how much money you're making, or what amounts of money you're attaching to your offerings. But it is so important, the most important, that you are well resourced, because that will ripple out not only to your clients, but also to your family. And that will ripple out to your family for generations. So yeah, and it's not just the harm, it's like the reconnection, you know, it's like you are contributing to more disconnection, which is what we are trying to avoid. So yes, Perfect. I love it. Thank you. Thanks for joining me. See you maybe, I don't know, in a fortnight or a month when we feel like coming on. But the 2nd of June, we are doing our next returning call. So if people want to hang out with us, we're going to be talking about probably deep diving into something juicy. I'm not going to say. So if you're in returning, get excited. All right. Have a beautiful day, everyone. Bye.